Okay, so hello students. Welcome to this tutorial of renal physiology. So previously we covered the GIT physiology, and I mentioned to say that the most of GIT physiology, there's some major components that I'm going to also record. But today I want to concentrate. I want to introduce you to the course, which is the topic, which is renal physiology. So the nanophysiology is all totally talk about you know, the kidneys, how the urine is formed, of course. So this topic really stress on in various parts of the kidneys, and you know, we are going to talk about how does the kidneys manage to form urine. Apart from that, the kidneys also play a critical function or critical role in the regulation of BP and a lot of functions that we're going to discuss in this topic. Okay, so whenever you hear renal physiology, we're just talking about the kidneys, of course, because they are the ones which are involved in this part of the topic. Okay, so this is on the left side, we have the structure of the kidney, which will further understand or rather see the parts which it contains. Then on the left side, it's more like a magnified structure within the kidney, which we call the structure function of a kidney, functional structural functional unit of a kidney. We call it a nephron, and in a nephron, that's where a lot of things actually happen. Okay, so the outline for this entire lecture have been displayed there, but I said I'm just going to introduce you to this topic. Then I'm going to record the tutorial video on each and every important subheading that is outlined here, so that you understand them on, as individual component, and then you later on put them together and they'll start making sense. So in this topic, it's very much important that we know the major functions of the kidneys. Okay. So the major function of the kidneys, we have the regulation function. The regulatory function is there. The kidney just try to regulate the body fluid osmolarity and volume. You want to also regulate the electrolyte balance, the acid-base balance, the blood pressure, as I earlier mentioned. Then we also have the excretion function, of which excretion is removing the toxic substances out of the body, like from the body. So what are they moving? They're moving the metabolic products, also producing the foreign substances, the excess substance like water, and then it also plays secretion function. Secretion function is those important components that are needed in the body. Okay, so in the body, realize that these are still important in the body. So the body produces those important substances that should be in the body. So these substances include erythropoietin, which we discussed under blood physiology, to say that erythropoietin is produced in the kidney. How does it go? It goes to the bone marrow and tell the bone marrow to increase the production of red blood cells in case you don't have a lot of blood. Okay. It also produces the vitamin D, which is basically the D3. It also produces renin, which plays a very important function in the regulation of blood pressure. It also secretes prostaglandins, which have a lot of functions, of course, which we're going to discuss. Okay, now we can just look at the entire kidney thingy until to the urethra and everything, how everything get excreted. Okay, now it's very much important we know that these are actually the kidneys are supplied by veins, and the arteries. Okay, the veins, they drain blood to send it to the heart so that it can be deoxygenated. But the arteries brings oxygen to the kidney because they are living parts, so they need to survive and they need that. They're excreting, they need oxygen, so they have to go to undergo that. Okay, so these are actually kidneys which are being displayed there on either side of the human body. So these kidneys, down there's ureter, which is collects the component. Then we have the urinary bladder. In the case of urine, the kidneys form urine. Then urine passes through the ureters, and then it goes into the urinary bladder. Then eventually we have the urethra. We have the ureters and the urethra. Urethra connect the kidney and the bladder, but the urethra is the one that's more like the outlet from the bladder to the outside. It could be the penis or the vagina. Okay. So as I earlier mentioned to say that the functional unit of the system are just the kidneys here. Okay. The conducting and the storage component, this is just conducting and storage component. The storage component is the urinary bladder, but the conducting ones are the urethra and the ureters, like these parts. Okay. So we can also look at the what is the parts of the kidney. So kidney mostly under this, I want you to know two major parts, which is the outer cortex, because so we have an outer cortex and an inner medulla. So as I mentioned to say that the functional unit of the kidney is the nephron. So this nephron lands from the outer cortex. Let me show you the nephron. So this nephron in green lands from the outer cortex, the one in yellow. Okay, the one in yellow is the outer cortex. Then what is the inner medulla? It's the one in red. Okay, now when you look at this component, let me show you the nephron. This nephron is green. It's running from the outer cortex and going into the inner medulla. So at this point, we can conclude to say that we actually have two types of nephron. The nephron that is in the cortex is called the cortical nephron. Then the other one, which is in the inner medulla, we call it the juxtaglomerular nephron. Okay. So of course, there is the renal pelvis, which runs down, drains down into the ureters, like the tubes I was showing you. Okay. So now, looking at the kidney, we are going specifically to look at the functional unit of the kidney, which is the nephron. So the nephron consists parts of which are the most important. Of course, the nephron, understanding the part of the nephron that the most important in this chapter, because everything that we're talking about, the regulation of BP and everything, production of learning, everything is under this chapter. So when you look at the nephron, we actually have about three classification of its called. So we have the vascular component. So just from the word just vascular, it's meaning dealing with vessels, everything that is need to transportation of blood and everything. Then also have the tubular component, more like a tube-like structure, which carries maybe amino acid or sodium or other ions that are of importance to the body. Then we also have the tubovascular component, meaning that here we have now combined the vascular and the tubular components all together. Now, when we look at the vascular component, we have the afferent and the efferent arterioles. The afferent arterioles brings blood towards the oasis, brings blood to the nephron. Then the efferent arterioles gets the same blood, more like a continuation, then it goes. The reason why you have the afferent and efferent arteriole is that blood does not directly go into the tubules because they go there by bulk flow method. Bulk flow is that it should not, it's more like diffusion, it's more like a passive process. Like blood should not just indirectly go into the tubules. It need to be more like diffuse. So there are some substances which are going to pass and which substances that are not going to pass. Okay, then the tubular components, we have the proximal converted tube, the distal converted tube, the nephron loop, which is also known as the loop of Henle, then the collecting duct. So under the tubular component, I'm going to explain everything in the lecture that we're going to discuss about the maybe formation of urine, or maybe we're going to go the what is juxtaglomerulus apparatus, of which is a very much important question here. It's a potential answer question. Then the tubovascular component is just the juxtaglomerular apparatus that we are going to discuss. I think after this one, we are going to look at the juxtaglomerular component because it's a very much important component under this topic. Okay, so whatever I was explaining, we can look to say that the afferent arterioles, they bring blood to the nephron. Okay. As I mentioned to say that this blood does not just start going towards the tube here. This is the tube that we're mentioning, the distal convoluted tube, then the proximal, and the renal vein, the what is so when you look at this blood does not just go directly to the tube. It's more like a sac here. This is the glomerulus. Okay. So in the glomerulus, there's nothing like blood just going travel direct to the tubules. What happens is that it goes to the other side. That is the efferent artery. So this efferent artery forms the peritubular capillaries which surround the same nephron again. Okay, so they will play a very much important role, which I'm going to describe in the next. What do the peritubular do? And then it goes to the renal vein. Of course, this we already know that the vein, an artery is the one which forms the vein. Okay, so after an artery, then vein, then they connect. Okay, there are capillaries in between, then they connect with veins so that this blood can go back to the heart via the inferior vena cava and go to the right side of the heart, then be purified by the lungs and be sent back again to the kidney via the artery. So this is the afferent, and I mentioned to say now the one we say the tubulovascular component I mentioned, the third classification, is where this glomerulus and the tube are actually meeting. So there are some actually very important points that you must know here. Okay, those points to say that this component where the vascular and the tubular, where they are meeting, we call the tubulovascular component. That is the glomerulus apparatus we are going to discuss in the next video. Okay. So what really happens is that in the formation of urine especially, we have four major processes. I can say three because the last one is not really major. So we have the filtration. So filtration is a passive process. Okay. So filtration, what happens in the filtration? Filtration is some certain substances which are not supposed to cannot pass and go into the tube. You know, we are not urinate. The aim is not urinate blood, but to urinate the component of blood, which is the toxic. So it need to diffuse and like just direct transport mechanism. So here there will be filtration, meaning some substances need to be filtered here. Okay. Then after these substances, mind you, after they have been filtered, where are they supposed to go? They are supposed to go into now the tube. But this filtration is not 100%. There are some important components like solutes, you know, some protein or bicarbonates, which are very much important in the regulation of blood pressure in the system. They are supposed to go back into the bloodstream. The bloodstream here now is the peritubular capillaries. It's just surrounding the nephron. So they need to go back, and that we call reabsorption. Okay. The reason why we are saying reabsorption is that it is already in the tubular. It came from the bloodstream. Now we are getting it. That's why you are saying reabsorption. So we are getting it from the tube and getting back to the circulation. Okay. Then from that, we have what we call secretion. Okay. So what does secretion mean? The same substances which are in the blood, this filtration is not 100%. So the body again realizes to say that there are some important components which are still in the blood. Okay. There are some important components which are supposed to, they are still in the blood. They need to go back into the tube. Okay. After that, then there's excretion of a substance. It just goes, then that's the urine that forms again. Okay. So what are we expecting in this lecture is we are supposed to look at the uh, regulation of the entire system. How is it regulated? Then we're also going to look at the renin and retention system in the next video. We're also going to look at the micturition, the entire process of urinating. How does it come about? But for that one, I have an individual, more like a tutorial that is going to help us to understand more about this topic. Okay. So everything. So in the next story, I'm going to teach you about the glomerulus, the juxtaglomerulus apparatus and everything that you're supposed to know there. Until then, see you then.